reporting.
And let's talk more about this now with Democratic Congressman Jared Moskowitz of Florida. He is on the House Oversight and Foreign Affairs Committee. Sir, thank you for taking the time to be with us today. Your reaction just first to the U.S. pausing shipment of these bigger bombs to Israel.
No, thanks. Thanks for having me. Yeah, look, there's all sorts of posturing and messaging that's going on publicly. You know, for right now, we were hoping that we would get a ceasefire. I think that's what the American people were hoping. I think a ceasefire is needed in the region in exchange for the release of hostages. But unfortunately, Hamas continues to not to agree to the ceasefire on the table. In fact, they sent out ceasefire propaganda yesterday that a lot of the world absorbed, which was completely false. You know, obviously the hope is that the operation in Rafah is very limited, but obviously there needs to be additional pressure on Hamas to agree to a ceasefire. And all of this posturing that's going on, unfortunately, it continues to relieve Hamas of any pressure to agree to a ceasefire.
When you say posturing, do you mean withholding 2,000-pound bombs? Do you see that as posturing?
Yeah, I mean, look, as we know, right, every country that's talking to Israel, right, sometimes they say things publicly versus what's going on behind the scenes. I mean, the president has been clear that so far this limited operation in Rafah does not cross a red line. The White House put that statement out. So if it hasn't crossed a red line, I don't know why we would be pausing any weapons. We need to get to a ceasefire as fast as possible. We need to make sure we're getting humanitarian aid in as fast as possible for the innocent Palestinians, to make sure that we don't continue to have a food crisis in the area. But the only way this is going to end as soon as possible is if Hamas releases the hostages. We don't even have, quite frankly, any honesty, shocking, from Hamas how many hostages are left. They try to change the deal and now want to return bodies instead of hostages. And so we need to increase the pressure on Hamas. Everything we do that gives Hamas a little bit of room or a little bit of an excuse, unfortunately, lets Hamas get away with an additional day of dragging this out. They're the ones prolonging this. We had hoped Israel wouldn't go into Rafah, but because Hamas won't release the hostages, this unfortunately continues.
It's incredibly alarming what we're learning about the hostages and how many may or may not be alive. Do you think the IDF, though, needs 2,000-pound bombs to effectively put pressure on Hamas?
Well, look, I'm not a war commander, okay, so I don't know what they need or not need. I mean, the idea right now is hopefully they're not doing a lot of this from
All right,
the air.
I mean, well, let's not, you know, you are on pertinent committees, and you know what these bombs do, and you know how they can be used tactically. Do you think the IDF needs them to put pressure on Hamas?
Yeah, what I was going to say, Brianna, is I don't think that much of this war should be done by the air anymore. I don't think that is at this stage of the war. I think we should be doing more on the ground, like you saw the last couple of days, rather than from the air. That being said, the message that it sends to Hamas, just like the message that Hamas is getting from watching American television, right? They see their power growing in this country by people supporting them. And so Hamas is very interested in the PR war. They're willing to sacrifice Palestinians to win the PR war, okay? And so when they see America pulling back, even in the slightest, right, that is a message to Hamas of, we don't have to agree to a ceasefire. So that's my concern about this sort of stuff. Obviously, we want, again, we want Rafah to be limited. We want it to achieve a target. We want to make sure we're protecting innocent civilian life. But right now, we got to get to a ceasefire. And the only way that's going to happen is if there's more pressure on Hamas, not less.
We've seen, no doubt, in some instances, terrible language when it comes to these some of these protesters. And you know that. You've seen it as well at GWU, where I believe you attended. But do you believe that all protesters are supporting Hamas?
No, of course not. But let's not gloss over that many of them are. Right? I mean, here's the deal. If I'm at a protest and we're chanting ceasefire now, and all of a sudden the chant at the protest changes to bomb Tel Aviv or kill all Zionists, and I don't leave, I'm now at a anti-Jewish protest. Right? By the way, where are the protesters? I haven't seen them. If there are, please show them to me. Where are the protesters that are fighting for Palestinians, that are fighting against the war, that are protesting Netanyahu, all fair, all under the First Amendment? Where are those people saying, hey, those guys over there that are saying kill all the Zionists, bomb Tel Aviv, go back to Poland? They're not with us. They're not with us. That's not going to help people in Gaza. Have you seen those people? I haven't seen those people.
Do you think at this point in time, if we can focus on the Rafah offensive, that the IDF can actually eradicate Hamas with a Rafah offensive?
Well, listen, we know that fighting against an ideology is hard to eradicate. The idea at this point, I think, is to demilitarize Hamas to a point where they can no longer launch anything offensive against Israel, and obviously to remove them from the power structure so that we can rebuild Gaza and get a new government in to actually fight for the Palestinians. I mean, remember Hamas, the leaders of Hamas are worth billions of dollars. How did they get that money? Did they invent a product? No, they stole from their own people. They didn't build any bomb shelters. They built tunnels to hide themselves. So, quite frankly, it will be better for the Palestinians when Hamas is no longer in power.
Congressman, thank you so much for being with us. We really appreciate your time.